there, and welcome to the Retirement Wealth Podcast. I'm so glad you're joining us today.
Yeah, absolutely, Emily. We're diving into a topic that's crucial for anyone thinking about their retirement: how to create a sustainable withdrawal plan.
Right. It can be such a tricky balance, figuring out how much to take from your savings without running out of money.
Exactly. We want to make sure you can enjoy your retirement while also feeling secure about your finances.
So, today we'll cover the key strategies for determining your withdrawal rate, how to account for market fluctuations, and some tips for adjusting your plan over time.
And we'll also touch on some common pitfalls to avoid, things that can really derail your retirement plans if you're not careful.
Yeah, and we'll share some real-life examples too, so you can see how these strategies can work in different situations.
It's going to be a really informative discussion, and I think it'll help a lot of listeners feel more confident about their retirement planning.
Definitely. So, let's get started. What do you think is the first step in creating a sustainable withdrawal plan, David?
So, Emily, I think it's really crucial to understand why creating a sustainable withdrawal plan matters right now, especially given the economic landscape we're in.
Absolutely, David. I mean, with retirement timelines shifting for so many people, it feels like everything is in flux these days.
Exactly. A lot of folks are finding themselves needing to retire earlier than they planned because of job losses or health issues, and that can really throw a wrench in their financial plans.
Right. And with inflation creeping up, it's becoming even more essential to ensure that your retirement savings can keep pace with rising costs.
You got that right. I was speaking with a couple recently who had planned to live comfortably on their savings, but then they realized that their projected expenses were increasing faster than they anticipated.
What did they do?
Well, they had to reevaluate their withdrawal strategy. They hadn't accounted for things like healthcare costs and everyday expenses going up, which is a huge reality for many retirees.
Yeah, healthcare costs can really add up, can't they? I mean, just think about it. Medicare doesn't cover everything, and many retirees are shocked by how quickly those out-of-pocket expenses can pile up.
Exactly. And then there's market volatility to consider. With the stock market being so unpredictable, relying solely on investment returns can feel risky.
For sure, I think that's where a solid withdrawal plan becomes even more critical. It's about balancing your investments with a reliable income stream that doesn't put your lifestyle at risk during market downturns.
Right, and speaking of income streams, Social Security is another big piece of the puzzle. Many people are unsure about how recent changes might affect their benefits.
Yes, I've read that some people are delaying their benefits, thinking it'll give them a better payout later, but that can sometimes backfire if they need income sooner than expected.
Exactly. It's a delicate balance, and understanding how and when to tap into Social Security can really impact a retiree's financial health.
And let's not forget about the emotional side of this. I mean, feeling financially secure in retirement can be such a relief, but if you're constantly worried about outliving your savings, that can be really stressful.
Absolutely. I had a client tell me that the peace of mind they felt after we created a sustainable withdrawal plan was like lifting a weight off their shoulders. They felt free to enjoy their retirement without that constant worry.
That's such a powerful testament. And it goes back to why planning is so vital. Because it's not just about the numbers. It's about the quality of life you get to enjoy during those retirement years.
Well said, Emily. And then there's legacy planning to think about, too. Many retirees want to leave something behind for their children or grandchildren. But without a solid withdrawal strategy, that can be difficult to manage.
Right, and if you're not careful, you could end up draining your resources too soon. And then, what kind of legacy are you leaving? It's all interconnected.
Exactly, and with the current economic trends, it's more important than ever to be proactive. So many people are finding that their retirement savings aren't stretching as far as they thought they would.
Yes, and that's why we're seeing more retirees looking for creative ways to generate income, whether it's through part-time work or alternative investments that can provide some stability.
I think this is a great moment to transition into discussing some core strategies for creating a sustainable withdrawal plan. It's all about being prepared and having a roadmap to guide you through these challenges, right?
Definitely. Let's dive into those strategies next.
So when we talk about creating a sustainable withdrawal plan, one of the most talked about strategies is the 4% rule. The idea that you can withdraw 4% of your retirement savings each year, adjusted for inflation, and have a high likelihood of not running out of money.
Right. That sounds simple enough, but I assume it's not one size fits all, is it?
Exactly. The 4% rule is a great starting point, but it really depends on a few factors, like your overall portfolio, your lifestyle, and how long you expect to be retired. For instance, if you retire early, you might need to pull back a little, maybe to 3.5% or so.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, if you're in retirement for longer than average, you'll want to be more conservative, right?
Absolutely. And then there's the market performance to consider. If the market takes a downturn right when you start withdrawing, that can have a significant impact on your portfolio's longevity.
So what do you suggest for someone who wants to use the 4% rule but is worried about market fluctuations?
A common approach is to diversify your investments, having a mix of stocks, bonds, and other assets. A traditional recommendation is a 70-30 portfolio, where 70% is in stocks and 30% in bonds. This can help buffer against volatility while still providing growth potential.
That's a solid strategy. But let's say someone has a more aggressive risk tolerance. Would they stick with that 70-30 split?
Good question. If someone is comfortable with risk, they might lean towards a 80-20 or even a 90-10 split, especially if they're younger and plan to retire later. But it's vital to remember that as you approach retirement, you should gradually shift toward a more conservative allocation to protect your savings.
And when you say gradually shift, how do you recommend doing that?
Well, a common method is called glide path investing. You start with a more aggressive allocation and then gradually adjust it as you near retirement. There are target date funds that automatically do this for you based on your expected retirement date.
That sounds pretty handy. Now, what about tax-advantaged accounts? Like, how do those fit into a withdrawal plan?
Great point. Tax-advantaged accounts like 401ks and IRAs are critical. The goal is to maximize these accounts before pulling from taxable accounts. When you withdraw, you want to be strategic about which accounts you draw from first to minimize taxes.
So, would you typically suggest withdrawing from a taxable account first, then tax-deferred, then tax-free accounts like Roth IRAs?
Exactly. Withdraw from taxable accounts first, then tax-deferred accounts, and finally, from tax-free accounts like Roth IRAs. This way, you keep your tax burden lower, and your Roth can continue to grow tax-free.
Interesting. And what about Social Security? How does that fit into the withdrawal strategy?
Social Security can be a significant part of your income during retirement. The decision of when to start taking it can impact your overall withdrawal strategy. For instance, if you delay taking Social Security until age 70, you can increase your monthly benefit significantly.
Right, I've heard that each year you wait past your full retirement age increases your benefit by about 8%, right?
Exactly. So if you can afford to wait, it's often a good idea to delay. In the meantime, you can draw from your other accounts to cover expenses.
That's a smart way to think about it. Now, I've heard about the bucket strategy as well. Can you explain how that works?
Sure. The bucket strategy involves dividing your retirement savings into buckets for different time horizons. For example, you might have a short-term bucket for the first few years of retirement, which includes cash and conservative investments, then a medium-term bucket for the next 5 to 10 years, and a long-term bucket invested in stocks for growth.
So this way, you're not forced to sell off your investments during a downturn, right?
Exactly. By having a mix of investments based on when you'll need the money, you can weather market fluctuations better.
And as you're planning these buckets, how do you determine how much to allocate to each?
A common rule of thumb is to have enough in your short-term bucket to cover at least the first 5 years of expenses. The medium-term bucket can cover the next 5 to 10 years, and then the long-term bucket is for growth.
That sounds like a really organized way to approach withdrawals. Now, what about required minimum distributions, or RMDs? How do they fit into this picture?
RMDs are a crucial consideration. Once you hit age 72, you're required to start withdrawing a minimum amount from your tax-deferred accounts. This can affect your withdrawal strategy, especially if you have a large balance in those accounts.
So if someone has a lot in their 401k, they need to plan for those distributions to avoid penalties, right?
Exactly. And it's wise to factor those RMDs into your overall income strategy to avoid pushing yourself into a higher tax bracket unexpectedly.
That's a good point. And speaking of taxes, what are some tax-saving techniques people can use in retirement?
One technique is tax loss harvesting, where you sell investments at a loss to offset gains. Another is converting some of your traditional IRA into a Roth IRA gradually over the years, especially if you're in a lower tax bracket.
Those sound like smart strategies. And when it comes to diversification, how do you recommend ensuring a diversified portfolio?
Diversification is key. Spread your investments across different asset classes, sectors, and geographic regions. This helps reduce risk and can lead to more stable returns over time.
It seems like there's a lot to consider when creating a sustainable withdrawal plan. But we've covered some solid strategies here.
Absolutely. And while these strategies can help, we also need to be aware of common pitfalls people face when planning withdrawals.
Right. Understanding those pitfalls can really help avoid some costly mistakes. Let's dive into that next.
So, Emily, one of the biggest pitfalls I see when people are creating their withdrawal plans is the sequence of returns risk. It sounds technical, but it really just means that the order in which you experience investment returns can have a huge impact on your portfolio, especially in the early years of retirement.
Yeah, I can see how that would be a big deal. I mean, if you have a bad year right when you start withdrawing, that could really set you back, right?
Exactly. I once worked with a couple. Let's call them Tom and Linda. They retired in 2008, right before the financial crisis. They had a solid nest egg, but because they started withdrawing during that market downturn, their portfolio took a significant hit. They ended up having to adjust their lifestyle and spending much sooner than they anticipated.
Wow, that sounds really tough. So what could they have done differently to avoid that situation?
Well, they could have had a more diversified strategy. Perhaps setting aside some cash reserves or bonds to cover the first few years of withdrawals. This way, they wouldn't have to sell stocks during a downturn. It's all about having a buffer.
That makes so much sense. Speaking of buffers, what about taxes? I feel like that's often overlooked in withdrawal planning.
Absolutely, Emily. Many retirees don't consider how taxes can eat into their withdrawals. I've seen folks who are just focusing on their gross income without factoring in taxes, which can really change their net income.
Right? So that can lead to some nasty surprises when tax season rolls around.
Yes! I had a client, let's call her Sarah. She started withdrawing from her traditional IRA without realizing that it would push her into a higher tax bracket. She ended up paying way more in taxes than she had planned, which reduced her overall retirement income.
Ouch! That must have been frustrating for her.
It was. We had to revisit her withdrawal strategy and look at ways to minimize her tax burden moving forward. One option was to consider Roth conversions while she was still in a lower tax bracket, and we also discussed the timing of her withdrawals more carefully.
Smart move. You really have to think about the long game, huh?
Exactly. And then there's the issue of healthcare costs. Many people underestimate how much they'll need for healthcare in retirement.
Oh, for sure. That can really sneak up on you.
I had another couple. Let's call them Mark and Judy. They were healthy and thought they wouldn't need to worry too much about medical expenses. But as they got older, they faced some unexpected health issues, and their out-of-pocket costs skyrocketed. They hadn't budgeted for that, and it really put a strain on their finances.
That's a harsh reality check. What do you recommend for folks to prepare for healthcare costs?
Well, it's crucial to do some realistic planning. Consider long-term care insurance, and make sure to budget for Medicare premiums and out-of-pocket expenses. Doing research on average healthcare costs in your area can also help set expectations.
Definitely. And then there's longevity, right? People are living longer, and that means your money needs to last even longer.
Yes, indeed. I've seen too many retirees underestimate their lifespan. I had one client, let's call him Bill, who planned for a 20-year retirement, but he ended up living for 30 years after retiring.
Wow, that's a big difference.
It is, and when you're living that long, you really need to think about sustainable withdrawal rates. Bill didn't adjust his plan as he aged, which led to him running out of money in his later years.
Yikes. So what's a good way to avoid that kind of situation?
A good rule of thumb is to plan for at least a 30-year retirement if you're retiring in your 60s. And it's essential to regularly reassess your withdrawal strategy as you age.
That sounds smart. Now, I know asset allocation is another area where people can go wrong.
Absolutely. Many retirees shift too conservatively after retirement, thinking they need to protect their savings. But if they become too risk-averse, they miss out on potential growth.
I've heard of people putting everything into bonds or cash. That can really hurt your long-term growth, can't it?
Exactly. I once had a client, let's call her Susan, who went very conservative after retiring. She didn't realize that inflation would erode her purchasing power, and after a few years, she found herself struggling to maintain her lifestyle.
That's a tough lesson. So how can retirees strike the right balance with their asset allocation?
It's all about finding a strategy that aligns with your risk tolerance and retirement goals. Regularly reviewing and adjusting your portfolio is key. It's wise to maintain a diversified mix of assets, even in retirement.
And then there's Social Security, right? Claiming too early can be a mistake.
Yes, it can be a costly one. I had a client, let's call him Gary, who claimed his Social Security benefits at 62. He really needed the money, but he didn't know that waiting a few more years would have significantly increased his monthly benefit.
That's a classic mistake. What should people consider when deciding when to claim?
Well, it really depends on your individual situation. Consider your health, your need for income, and whether you have other savings. If you can afford to wait, it often pays off in the long run.
So many moving parts to think about.
For sure. And the key is to stay proactive. Spotting these red flags early can save you from a lot of stress later on.
That's great advice. So if someone is listening and recognizes they might be making one of these mistakes, what should they do next?
First, take a step back and review your current plan. You might want to consult with a financial advisor to help identify any gaps in your strategy. It's never too late to make adjustments that can lead to a more secure retirement.
Absolutely. It's all about being informed and proactive.
Exactly. And with the right planning and adjustments, retirees can navigate these challenges and enjoy their retirement years with confidence.
Well, that's a perfect transition to the next steps in our conversation. Let's dive into how to create a sustainable withdrawal plan that works for you.
So let's dive into some actionable steps that our listeners can take right now. Starting with those online tools that can really help in creating a sustainable withdrawal plan.
Absolutely. I think a great first step is to check out retirement calculators from companies like Vanguard, Fidelity, or Schwab. They have really user-friendly tools that let you plug in your numbers and see how different withdrawal strategies might play out.
Right. And these calculators often account for things like market fluctuations and your projected expenses. It's a good way to visualize your retirement income over time, which can be super helpful.
And don't forget about the Social Security Administration's website, ssa.gov. They have calculators that can help you estimate your benefits based on your earnings history. It's just one more piece of the puzzle, right?
Exactly. And speaking of pieces, tax software can be invaluable too. Understanding how your withdrawals will be taxed can really shape your strategy. You might want to look into tools like TurboTax or H&R Block, which can give you insights into your tax situation.
Yeah, and if someone's feeling a bit overwhelmed, there are financial planning apps out there that can simplify everything. Apps like Personal Capital or Mint can help you track your spending and investments, making it easier to see how much you can safely withdraw.
Those apps are great for keeping an eye on your portfolio, and I'd recommend setting a habit of reviewing your portfolio quarterly. Just taking a look at how your investments are performing can help you make necessary adjustments.
That's so true. And running retirement projections periodically can also give you peace of mind. It's a small commitment that can yield big insights over time.
Speaking of habits, I think it's important to encourage listeners to start small. Maybe set aside just 15 minutes a week to focus on your retirement plan. It could be reviewing your current financial situation, or even reading a book on retirement planning.
That's a great point. Speaking of books, there are some fantastic resources out there. I'd recommend The Boglehead's Guide to Retirement Planning. It's really practical and breaks down complex topics in a way that's easy to understand.
Another one I like is How Much Money Do I Need to Retire by Todd Tressitter. It really gets into the nitty-gritty of calculating your needs, and it's packed with actionable advice.
Oh, and don't forget about podcasts. There are some great ones out there, like The Retirement Answer Man and Choose FI. They cover a variety of topics and often feature real stories from people navigating the retirement journey.
Exactly. And hearing others' experiences can be really encouraging. It reminds us that we're not alone in this process.
Right. And as you're gathering this information, remember that it's never too late to improve your plan. Even if you're already in retirement, small adjustments can make a big difference.
Absolutely. It's all about taking those incremental steps. And don't hesitate to reach out to a financial advisor if you need personalized guidance.
Yes, finding someone who understands your unique situation can really help you feel more confident in your decisions.
So to wrap this up, those are some practical first steps. Now let's bring this all together for our listeners in the outro. Well, Emily, as we wrap up this discussion on creating a sustainable withdrawal plan, I think it's important to highlight a few key takeaways.
Absolutely, David. First off, understanding your spending needs in retirement is crucial, right? It helps you determine how much you should be withdrawing.
Exactly. And then there's the importance of having a diversified portfolio. Balancing your investments can really help manage risk and ensure you have what you need when you need it.
Right. And let's not forget about the importance of flexibility. Adjusting your withdrawal strategy based on market conditions or personal circumstances can make a big difference in sustainability.
Yes, adaptability is key. Also, I think we touched on the significance of considering taxes. A well-thought-out tax strategy can help you keep more of your hard-earned money.
For sure. And finally, having a solid plan in place can really give you peace of mind about your financial future. It's all about feeling secure as you navigate retirement.
Well said, Emily. Building and protecting your retirement wealth is a journey, not a sprint. With the right strategies and a little bit of planning, you can create a fulfilling retirement experience.
Definitely. And to our listeners, if you found value in today's episode, we'd love for you to like and subscribe. It really helps us reach more people who are planning for or already in retirement.
And don't forget to comment with your biggest takeaway or any questions you might have. Sharing your thoughts helps foster this wonderful community we're building.
Yes, and if you know someone who could benefit from this conversation, please share the episode with them. It could really make a difference in their retirement journey.
And next time, we'll dive into how to invest in international markets for retirement. It's going to be an exciting topic.
It really is. So, until then, take care and remember to keep planning for that bright future ahead.
Goodbye for now, everyone.
Bye.